business by day, wizard by night. You've found the one place where the contracts end and the magic begins. Grab a potion, restore your mana, and pull up a chair. Welcome to the 8-Bit Tavern.
Welcome back to the tavern, everyone. Pull up a stool. It's great to see you. Whether you're driving home from a long shift, sitting in a campus library studying for finals, or you just need to restore a little mana before jumping back into the daily grind, you are exactly where you need to be. I'm your host, Team Magician, and tonight we are putting on our marketing hats and taking a hard look at the past. We're going to explore why we used to fight tooth and nail just to get our hands on a chunk of gray plastic, and why that plastic still holds so much power over us today. But before we get into the economics of the pixel, let's open up the quest log. We are officially in late May, and if you know anything about the real estate market right now, you know everyone is scrambling to close on houses before the brutal summer heat really sets in. The day job has been intense. We're talking back-to-back showings, writing property descriptions late into the evening, handling high-stress contract negotiations, and just trying to keep everything running smoothly. It's a heavy lift, but it's exactly why this tavern exists. When the suit comes off, the wizard hat goes on. Balancing that professional grind by day and casting spells on stream by night is how we restore that energy. You know, this week was just kind of wild, Also, not only am I, doing the realtor thing and going to school full time as well in the evenings, but I'm also going to be kind of taking on a little bit of a weight loss journey here in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to be undergoing a procedure, and then life as we know it is going to change, and things are going to get more intense, and so it's just nice to be able to kind of have this outlet to be able to really just get in and kind of just vent and kind of take a little bit of a deep dive into some different areas of something that I am so passionate about as far as the gaming community goes. And so just having this space to be able to unwind and step back is always nice. And so it's just good to have it here. And I appreciate you guys joining us. And, we still have our stream where we're able to kind of let off some of that steam from the week and things that happen. So those things are all great. And speaking of the stream, the late night crew was absolutely carrying the vibe this week. The energy in the chat was incredible. And we were talking about digital ownership, laughing at some of the wild gameplay moments and just hanging out. If you haven't joined the party yet, then you're missing out on one of the best communities on the platform. We're live on Twitch Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Central. And we encourage you guys to join. Love to have you guys come over in there. And just remember, if you do come over from the podcast, make sure that you just type tavern in the chat to let us know where you found us at. So I've got my drink all mixed up here to kind of unwind and relax this evening in the tavern, and the mana bar is full. So let's take a look at the main topic. Let's rewind the clock. I want to take you back to the late 80s and early 90s. I want you to think about the absolute hysteria of trying to find a copy of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, or Super Mario Bros. 3 on store shelves. Today, if a massive AAA game drops, what do? You click a button, you wait maybe 20 minutes for the download, and it's on your hard drive. There's zero friction. But back then, finding a hit game was an actual physical quest. I just want you to kind of sit back and think, it's the 90s and you're a young child or a teenager and you've gotten your Nintendo magazine or you've seen a commercial for a new game that's coming out that you really want to grab, and now you've got to convince your parents to drive you to Toys R Us or, back in those days, Electronics Boutique, and you've got to stand in line and do the waiting, and then you've got to get in some of the larger stores like Best Buy or Circuit City, you would have had to have taken a physical piece of paper over to the security booth and they'd get you the game. Or maybe you didn't buy the game, but you really wanted to try it first. And so, every Friday night you'd run to the phone and you'd dial there on your home phone and you'd call Blockbuster. See if maybe Blockbuster had a copy of what you were looking for that maybe had been returned so that you could rush up there and try to be the first one to grab it or have them pull it and hold it for you. Or, you know, maybe you lived in a smaller town and Blockbuster wasn't where you called. Maybe you called Hollywood Video or Take Two Videos or some other small mom and pop video operation that you would call, just hoping that you could get your hands on a copy of that so that you could have your week rental to be able to play it and enjoy it. I know that's kind of what I did as a child. You would just go to Blockbuster and rent it or call and make sure they had it first. And sometimes you'd go several weeks in a row and till you finally got lucky and you were able to find it. And so that kind of brings us to what I like to call the cartridge economy. What a lot of people didn't realize when we were kids was that Nintendo wasn't just making great games. They were running an absolute masterclass in marketing and supply chain management. In my business administration studies, we studied this exact phenomenon. It's called the principle of scarcity. And during the NES era, Nintendo intentionally managed their cartridge inventory. In 1988, there was an actual global shortage of the ROM chips that were used to make the cartridge. But instead of panicking, Nintendo leaned into it. They didn't flood the market, they allocated strict numbers to retailers. They created artificial scarcity, which turned a simple piece of plastic into the most highly sought after commodity on the playground. When you couldn't find a game, it didn't make you want it less, it made the hype explode. And it's the exact strategy that modern brands use today with limited drops. Let's go back and think about where we've just seen kind of this principle of scarcity with the Pokemon thing that happened last year in 2025, where you had, that was kind of driven by scalpers, that money grab with it being so popular. But for your everyday collector, it was a scarce marketplace and people were paying 3 and 4 times what it was actually worth to be able to get their hands on it because it was something that they wanted. It made them feel good. We can go further back in time and look at using Nintendo again when they dropped the Wii, when the Wii first came out in the early 2000s. It was a huge thing around, that 2010 time frame when the Wii was still extremely popular or, even a little bit earlier. People were standing in line and waiting and paying extra for them on eBay just to be able to get their hands on them. So it's not something that's new and it's not just a little one-off that particularly just involves the cartridges, but it's still true today. If you look at some of these other big time brands like with sneakers, they do limited drops and shoe stores only get a handful of them in overall and maybe only 1 or 2 pair in each size and people wait for hours. you know Even if you have like a really high desirable property that comes up in real estate, maybe it only has a 24-hour offer deadline, it creates a bidding war, drives the price of things up. That scarcity makes people in most cases want something more. You want it more because you can't have it, and it creates that that feeling of urgency, like you've just got to get your hands on it, like you've got to have it. But there's a second layer to this that we look at whenever we want to look at the modern retro market. Why are adults today willing to pay premium prices, sometimes hundreds of dollars, for a physical, beat up game from 30 years ago when they could easily emulate it for free on their phone? It is because of emotional equity. You aren't just buying a game, you're buying the feeling of holding that exact piece of plastic that you fought so hard to find when you were a kid. And let's be real, there's a massive conversation happening right now about digital ownership. We talked about the Sony DRM controversy recently on this very podcast. And when you buy a digital game, you're essentially just renting a license. They can shut down servers and your games are gone. But that gray plastic cartridge. No one can patch it. No one can revoke your license. As long as you have the console, you own the magic. It's brilliant marketing, and it's proof that physical scarcity combined with true ownership creates long term brand loyalty. And that's why some of these brands have been able to be out there for as long as they have, like Nintendo. It's because there's that nostalgic feel, and them still having the physical cartridges still builds that long term loyalty for you. And so that brings us to this week's nostalgia check, because we can't talk about physical cartridges without talking about the absolute greatest lost art in gaming history, the instruction booklet. Do you remember the car ride home once you finally secured the game you'd been looking for? You were sitting in the back seat of the car. You couldn't play the game yet. So what did you do? You ripped off the plastic wrap, popped open the cardboard box, and spent the entire 20 or 30-minute ride home reading a full color 30-page manual. You know, I often think about how not only were the manuals extremely popular and you would take notes on it and it would get you fully immersed in the lore before you ever started playing the game, but I think about how during the big Pokemon push in the Game Boy era, kind of how, folks would go buy the game guides, and game guides were popular for a lot of games, and they would, in full color booklets, walk you through each stage and level and what you should be looking for and who the bosses were and the best strategies. And all of these were developed by people that had already pre-played the game and had done these things. And now we kind of lose that physical touch on things because we just hop on YouTube and we find a video and we watch that now, and it does the same thing, gives us a walkthrough. But looking at it on YouTube and watching a video is not the same as holding that physical game guide and flipping through it and being able to turn back to it and showing it off to your friends. When you're looking at the instruction manual in the back of the car, you studied enemy types. You looked at the maps. You read the character lore. By the time you got home, plugged in the cartridge into the console and pushed down that chunky power button, like I said, you were fully immersed in the world. Digital downloads are incredibly convenient, but we lost that physical touch point. We lost the ritual. Today, a game just boots up and throws you into a mandatory tutorial level. But the instruction booklet was the real tutorial. It built anticipation. I don't think that there's very many games today that you buy that come with an instruction manual anymore. And in games of old, sometimes that was the only way that you learned how to play the game. If you didn't have the instruction manual, you didn't know what some of the different features and functions were. But now, it seems like every game cleverly disguises a tutorial and a how-to into the beginning of the story. And I think that's true whether it has like mandatory missions like they do on Call of Duty, where it's the training ground and you have to learn how to do it. Or if you even take some of your other like RPG style games where the first couple of things give you the tutorial pop-ups on the screen and it starts the story off for you, but it's also to work you into it. If you still have an old instruction booklet lying around in a box somewhere in your closet, do me a favor. Go pull it out this week. Just flip through those pages. Look at the artwork. It's a completely different kind of magic than the modern gaming industry gives us, and it's something that they've just totally left behind. Before we close the tavern doors for the night, let's dig into the loot bag. I want to give a massive shout out to the community members holding it down in the Twitch chat whenever we're online, and I want to thank you for tuning in every week. Whether you tune into the streams or you just stop by and listen to this podcast for 15 or 20 minutes a week, we really appreciate it. And that's what the tavern is all about. It's not just about the games. It's about taking your daily wins and supporting each other and bringing positive energy. Whether you're closing a massive deal, passing a midterm, or finally beating a boss that you've been stuck on, we like to celebrate it. Keep dropping updates in the chat when we're live on the stream. And remember, if you do come over to the stream from the podcast, just drop the word tavern to let us know that you found us from the podcast. Well, that's going to just about do it for this episode of the 8 Bit Tavern. If you've enjoyed the vibe tonight and you learned a little something about the business side of gaming, or if it's just helped you decompress after a long day, make sure that you hit that follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you find us from. And remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. Come hang out with the party members this Friday and Saturday at 8:30 Central on Twitch. We'll be live, the chat will be moving, and the vibes will be immaculate. Until next time, keep your head down in the grind, keep your mana restored, and I'll see you in the next level. Good night, everyone.